25, 2021, 1 o'clock. And I'm going to start, before we take roll call, I'm going to start with the script that we've been opening these meetings with for several months now, as we have to, as it relates to COVID-19. Government Abbott has temporarily suspended certain requirements of the Open Meetings Act in response to the COVID-19 public health disaster. Specifically, governmental entities are permitted to meet by telephone or video conference, provided the meetings are audible to the members of the public and allow for two-way communication. The suspension of certain requirements of the Open Meetings Act is intended to reduce in-person meetings and the spread of COVID-19 while maintaining governmental transparency. Today, the Nbu Board of Trustees meeting will be held by video conference. The board welcomes and encourages the public to participate during the public comment period. Members of the public will be allowed to participate during the public comment period to raise any matter related to Nbu that is not on the agenda, as well as discuss any item on the agenda. We ask that all participants state their name and address and limit their comments to no more than 5 minutes. Due to the electronic limitations of this meeting, citizens will only be allowed to make comments during the public comment period of the meeting. Items not posted on the agenda, the Nbu Board of Trustees may not deliberate on any item that is raised by a citizen that is not posted on the agenda. For such an item, Nbu may 1, make a statement of fact regarding the item, 2, make a statement concerning the policy regarding the item, or 3, propose the item be placed on a future agenda. Recording of the video conference will be made available to the public on Nbu's website after the meeting. Laura, if you'll please go ahead and take roll.
Mr. Harrell?
Yes, ma'am. Present.
Dr. Hoffman?
Present.
Mayor Brockman? Mr. Gray?
I'm here, yes.
Mr. Peters?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
I'm here.
Mr. Kelso?
Here.
Ms. Locke?
Here.
Mr. Hubbard?
Present.
Ms. Shriver?
Present.
Ms. Britton?
Here.
Ms. Crosby?
Here.
And Ms. Rivers, myself. Quorum is present.
Okay, thank you, Laura. And I'll just remind everybody, please, to, if you'll mute your microphones, just so we don't have any background noise during any discussion. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation led by Board Trustee Bob Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell. If you'll join me with the pledge, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. And if you'll bow your heads, if you wish, for the invocation. Dear Lord, please bless us during this beginning of summertime in New Braunfels, Texas. Please bless all our graduates, high school, college, and beyond on their next steps and journeys, and our families to help foster them and keep them safe. Our employees, we pray for a calm and safe summer during what is can be a very busy time in our community. Also for our neighbors, Lord, please bless them and welcome our new neighbors in our community. Lastly, for the men and women in uniform, please watch over them, bless them, and keep them safe. In Lord's name, amen.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to public comment.
Hello, my name is Nick, and I have my wife, Carmen Tancredi. We just relocated from California. We drove out here. We were told that we were going to be closing on March 15th. We came here on the 29th and had to move into a hotel, which we've been in since March 29th. We've had to relocate our household goods, reroute our whole household goods from California to a storage in New Braunfels. And so I just ask that, you guys consider, take consideration of this, and if you were in our shoes, have the same, outlook as we are. And I heard what the gentleman said about our neighbors. We do want to be neighbors in New Braunfels. So as soon as we can get this corrected, then we can proceed to that point.
Sir, could you, we appreciate your comments. Could you state your address or your new to be address, of course?
Yes, it's 5694 Basilone Ridge and New Braunfels Copper Ridge area.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have any more public comment?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Bridget Cooper. My husband Richard and I were ready for the next chapter in our life, and we chose to move to this beautiful city of New Braunfels and our dream home in Copper Ridge. And we went under contract in November of 2020, completely unaware of any water meter delays. We sold our cars and furniture, began packing up our lives. Our home was supposed to be finished mid-August of this year, yet we sit in limbo, still waiting for building to start. We live in a half-packed home and are not sure what to do to get this moving forward. What should be an exciting time of our life has become a nightmare. We truly feel helpless. How long does it take to get a well dug and online? In June, it will be 4 years since the original CSA and subsequent deadline extensions that's led us to where we are today. It's very clear that Sutherland is either incapable, unwilling, or unable to honor the terms of the agreement and finish the wells despite multiple extensions. We feel it is time to exercise some tough love and for NBU to hold them to the agreement or cancel the agreement and NBU to finish the job. Any extension you give the developer delays real people like Monica, Jody, Nigel, Juan, and the others and their families from being able to move into their homes or enjoy the very real experience of watching their home be built. As it stands now, all of the 28 plus families are in a very real purgatory. Some living in hotels, friends' sofas, trailers, rentals, and on and on. Interest rates have risen, rate locks have disappeared, and the real estate market has changed dramatically, so it's difficult to even buy a replacement home. I appeal to your humanity. Please consider each and every family in your decision. What you decide today will impact the approximately 28 families and their lives. We beg you to do what is right for your neighbors and future customers. We also ask when you release meters, you release enough meters for each family currently under contract, no matter the status of their home build, from completed home to still waiting to be built. Our builder, Ashton Woods, has advised us they will not start our home until they have meters, and they will build 2 to 4 homes per month. So we're looking at 5 to 6 months build out before the first completed home. That allows plenty of time for NBU to complete well 19. If you don't release meters to include the contracted homes not yet built, it will be over a year before they'll even start to build our home. And under that scenario, it'll be 2022 and over a year and a half before we can move into our home. I beg you, please end our nightmare and do not make these families wait any longer. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Cooper, thank you for your comments. Could you also please state your address in Copper Ridge?
Yes, it's 5656 Copper Vista.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Hello, NBU board. I am at 5682 Basilone Ridge, which is considered the addition. My husband and I both are military. I have 33 years. My husband has 31. And New Braunfels has become our retirement community. We're both retiring this year. We decided to plan ahead and look for a community for us to retire in and continue to serve our community within the compounds of our city. And New Braunfels was the location we selected. Last year, May, we signed our contract. We immediately sold our home based upon our contract and was given March 22nd as our close date. We had no idea about anything about the water meters or anything of that nature. It was never mentioned to us. And so we did a 8-month lease to an apartment complex. That has now I'm sorry, it was a 6-month lease. That has now come and gone, and now we're on a month-to-month process. Even though we're retiring this year, we cannot give the Army any predictability of where we're going to stay in order for them to help us with our transition. They typically try to help veterans transition with internships or any type of job. And right now, I don't know if I'll be living in Austin, New Braunfels, or anything, because right now everything is in limbo. And so our family right now is on a month-to-month lease with the premise of, if that lease gets selected to get a longer-term lease, then we could actually be out on the street. We have 4 storages. We've been in limbo since May of last year, and we have no idea what is going to take place, not only for where we're going to live, but also for our future in the military, as far as how do we transition and what type of employment opportunities will we be able to gain. And so I really, first of all, appreciate your opportunity in allowing us to speak. I didn't even know that this was a forum for us to be, for you guys to see us, but there are about 28 other families that are all in several different different predictabilities, and we really want to be at home in New Braunfels, and it's been very stressful, not only transitioning, but just trying to figure out what is going on with our home and these water meters. So whatever you decide, please consider all of these families in your decisions as it relates to releasing any water meters. And again, thank you for your time and allowing us to be able to speak on behalf of our new community that we want to reside in. Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your comments.
Hi there, everyone. This is Kathy Byram. My husband and I, Wayne, are actually native to the area. Our future address is to be 605 Innsbruck. My husband and I are both 60 years old. We've been married for 39 years. We're both retired. We were blessed to retire from USAA after being able to serve our military members for 27 years. It was an honor and a privilege to have that opportunity. During that time, we saved, like Dave Ramsey says, like no one else, so we could live like no one else. We spent a lot of time hunting and searching within the area because our granddaughter, my daughter and our granddaughter lives here in the area. Yay, she's going to graduate on Thursday from New Braunfels High School, go Unicorns. So we're very excited about that. But we did a lot of soul searching and looking and looking. We were going to buy in the what is now I know as the original Copper Ridge. At the time, we had no idea that there was South Edition, owned by Gordon Hartman, North Edition, Jay Patterson.
I think we lost you. Can y'all hear her?
Yeah, no.
No.
I think we lost the audio.
Yeah, it looks like she's gone.
You may call back in. Do we have any other public comments?
Yes, I'd like to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Stephanie Gardner. My address to be is 5648 Copper Vista. I'm also in the same predicament. We contracted with our house back in May of last year, and was scheduled to close in February of this year. The fact that, and we also were unaware of the water meter issue, didn't find out anything about it until January timeframe this year. The thing that's concerning for us is that I too had a home that I ended up having to sell early because I wasn't able to qualify for my loan if I still had my other home. And so I sold it back in August, and I've been living in an apartment since that time. But since that time, our lease is up. I only took a 6-month lease because I took a lease through the end of the period when I was supposed to close. And now we are also on a month-to-month. And for the month-to-month, they've increased my rent $300 a month. Plus, I have my furniture in storage, and it has been in full storage for the last 9 months. I have 2 different storage units. And the thing that I ask of you guys is that I know there's a lot of contractual things that need to be taken care of. But you know, the hard part for us is that we are kind of we're stuck in the crosshairs because we were unaware of the situation. And the unfortunate part about it is that we made a choice to live in Copper Ridge because we love the community, we love the area, and we had opportunities to live other places, but we decided we wanted to live in New Braunfels, and that's where we chose to make our home. So the thing that I'm asking of the board members when you guys are considering what to do about Sutherland and everything is to take into consideration myself and all the other families that are affected by this, and not allow the big corporation to continue to quote unquote win by delaying even further what they were contracted to do in order to provide a service for us as the consumers. And I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak today. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we will get to move forward sooner than later. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gardner. We have anyone else? I saw a caller call back in. Did we have anybody?
Hi, can you hear me? This is Mary Odierna, and I'm calling for my husband, Stephen Odierna, and I, and we are at 5686 Bassett Ridge. And we were contracted back in early July, and we were supposed to close by March. I'm gonna go with everyone else who has spoken before so beautifully that we're all in the same predicament. We are living out of a storage unit. We have 3 storage units. Our house, we have been out of our house since April of last year. We are month to month renting in a 1-bedroom apartment, and we have children that come back and visit from college. We are paying now a $300 to $400 a month more a month. We also can't lock into a mortgage rate. We don't know when we're closing, are we closing? So I just pray that meters are released so that we can all go home, have a home to live in. This has been so stressful for each and every one of us, and blindsided because none of us knew what was going on, that we had no idea about this water issue. So I just ask that you please consider, I thank you for taking the time to hear us all, and I just pray that you work to get us in our home sooner than later. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. We got anybody else? We'll give it just a minute because I know that other caller may be trying to call back in.
Yeah,
It was Miss
Byron.
Byram.
Yeah.
Kathy Byram.
Oh, guys, did y'all lose me? Because I'm here. I just thought I got disconnected because I was talking too long.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. We didn't. If you'll give us, we lost you there. I don't know. Maybe after a couple of minutes, we lost your audio.
Right after
I
you
have a
talked about
tendency
your
to.
grandkids graduating.
Oh, yay. Yay. No. But anyway, I just want to tell y'all I'm glad because I thought maybe I hit my time limit because I'm a big talker. But I just want to tell you all the same thing everyone has said is that we're trying to be really patient with everything. But like I said, we wanted to live in Copper Ridge also. That was our choice. We were going to build a year and a half ago. We looked at empty property, almost picked on Palisades View out there, decided not to do it, drove back into the back, saw Ashton Woods. Great. This is a deal. It's a bargain. Had no idea the nightmare we were entering into. Understand clearly there was an agreement between Gordon Hartman's outfit and Ashton Woods, and you all had agreed to only issue 10 meters to them. Did all the homework on all of that. And my takeaway is I just didn't realize some of those developers were such sneaky snakes in the grass. You know, I learned a lot about building a well, how developers work, empty promises and things of that nature. But now we're all wanting to move forward and just get into our homes and just, you know, have a block party, everybody get together, and all of NBU will be invited as well, you know, if we can make this happen. But appreciate everybody's time, and I know y'all can do or are doing whatever you can to try to make it happen. And I thank you so much for all your time, and I hope y'all have a great weekend. Before I let you go, I just want to once again pass on my thanks to Mike Short. I've had opportunities to talk to him on the phone. He's wonderful to deal with, so empathetic, as well as Desiree. She is a jewel. And so I do appreciate everyone. I feel like it's very heartfelt from you all that y'all want to do what you can, understanding within contractual limitations as well. So we're just looking forward to moving on. And thank y'all again for everything that you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Byram. Do you have anybody else?
I don't see any other green lights.
Okay. Okay, that concludes public comment, and that will take us to Nbu Employee Recognitions.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 employees that we are going to recognize today. Both are celebrating 20 years of service. And the first is Alex Alvarado. Alex, are you out there? Let's see if I can see your face before I start talking about you.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Alex. Glad you made it. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
So Alex started with Nbu on March 6th, 2001, and he instantly stood out as an achiever, and he excelled in his initial responsibilities of working on Nbu service trucks. Over time, Alex learned how to set water meters, respond to water main breaks, clear sewer chokes, and respond to customer complaints with patience and a smile. He became proficient in running a service truck and with the responsibility of being part of a line construction crew that worked on larger and more difficult construction installations. Work that helped promote Alex to a Waterline Tech 2 in September 2006. Alex's years of successful performance, exhibition of leadership skills, and a daily positive attitude prepared him to take on the next role of his career as crew chief, a title he filled with safety and efficiency. On August 13, 2013, Alex was promoted to a Waterline Tech 3, a position where he and his crew proved to be instrumental in leading the way in performing a variety of aggressive collection system maintenance activities. Alex's integrity is consistently displayed and particularly shined during Winter Storm Uri as he helped those in need without hesitation. His dedication is unfailing, and we are undoubtedly fortunate to have Alex on the Nbu team. As the former manager of his department, I can attest to everything that I just read. Appreciate everything he's done. And Alex, I want to thank you for 20 years of service to Nbu. Congratulations. Wish I could stand here and hand you a pen or something, man. Won't be too long. Appreciate you, Alex.
Thank you, sir.
Bet. All right, next up is Lupita Sutton. Lupita, are you out there? I hope you're here. Oh gosh, well, Lupita, I'm going to talk about you anyway. I hope you can hear me at least. Lupita began her career with Nbu on June 11th, 2001 as, ready for this, the very first geographic information system mapping technician in the electric engineering department. For those of y'all who don't know what GIS is, it is probably one of the most important, well, I'm biased, I come from engineering operations. It's the most important database we have around here. So many things are built on, there, I see you, Lupita. Glad you could join us here. So many things are built on top of that. And she was our very first tech for the electric group. Lupita's contribution to the growth and development of our GIS and our organization is evident. From her leadership in converting Nbu's utility data to help her with CityWorks and her vital role in the initial deployment of the outage management system, Lupita is an essential part of our team. She continues to expand her knowledge of GIS and takes on challenging projects that enhance Nbu's mapping system. Lupita's hard work, dedication, and attention to detail is very appreciated, and the GIS department would not be where it is today without her input. Please, y'all, join me in congratulating Lupita on reaching this milestone. We look forward to many more years with you, Lupita. Well done.
Thank you.
You bet. How's your pandemic going, Lupita?
Good, sir. Thank you.
Good.
We lost one member, but the rest of us are good.
Nice to see you. Look forward to seeing you in person not too long. Take care.
Me too. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Does that conclude your?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was muted. I was muted. That's it, Mr. President. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Those are always fun to hear about. Those are all good. Okay, let's see. What takes us to items from the chair. Number 1, report from the Ad Hoc Governance and Personnel Committee. I think Ms. Hoffman's going to take that one.
That is correct. And just so you know, I have a lengthier report because we have been very busy. So just bear with me while I read through some very important information. We last met May 20th, just 5 days ago. And it was John Harrell, myself, Christine Reinhardt, and Connie Locke. And the committee met to review and revise the governance policies and the CEO executive agreement. And we had been meeting on these dates in the past, in addition to the one 5 days ago. We met on November 19th, 2020, January 21st, 2021, March 4th, March 22nd, April 22nd, and then most recently, May 20th. This report will relate solely to the governance policies. The committee will present a separate report at the board's June 24th meeting regarding the CEO executive agreement. The committee discussed the need to make the following revisions to the governance policies. A, to add a preference explaining the purpose of the governance policies and any related revision history. B, structure operational policies around MBU strategic goals. C, set minimum time periods for setting and reviewing MBU strategic goals. D, incorporate strategic goal measurements in lieu of maintaining separate operational and outcome policies. E, we renamed policies as follow. The current policy is operational policies, and we're proposing to change that to strategic goals. Current policy name of governance process, we are suggesting to change it to board governance. And then we are keeping no changes to the third area, board management delegation. F, we also discuss and update policies to reflect current or preferred board and MBU practices. G, add new policies describing the vice president's role in addressing board member discipline, resignation, and removal. H, clarify timing of the annual planning process. I, add reference to additional training resources in the policy on governance investment. J, clarify board and CEO communication requirements. K, reorganize misplaced policies or language. And L, revise vague, unclear, or outdated language. The committee presented the proposed revisions to the board at its retreat on March 31st of this year, and again at its regular meeting on April 29th of this year. On May 20th, 2021, the committee discussed additional feedback. After its April board meeting, they made the following changes. There were 2 of them. 1, we updated board committees, and we clarified emergency executive CEO succession planning. And then finally, the committee discussed that it would meet as the governance committee in the future on an as-needed basis to ensure that the governance policies remain current. And that's the end of my report. Thank you for listening.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us to items from staff. Number 1, CEO's update.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind, I've got so many windows open and clicking mute and unmute. I missed 2 employee recognitions. If you wouldn't mind, let me go back to those 2 and then I'll hit the CEO's update.
You bet, absolutely.
Thank you. I apologize to those that I missed. The first up is our Leadership New Braunfels graduates, and I'm pleased to recognize 2 MBU leaders who were recognized at the Leadership New Braunfels graduation ceremony. The first is Chief Operations Officer Ryan Kelso, class of 2020. They're catching up that graduation this year because of COVID. And our Chief Technology and Security Officer, Robin Britton, who's class of 2021, this year that just wrapped up. Many of y'all know, I think some of y'all are actually graduates of this program. Leadership New Braunfels is an 8-month series of one-day sessions covering areas such as government, education, economic development, social needs, leadership skills, and other key segments of the community. So it takes quite a bit of time and work on their part, and I appreciate those 2 for going through it. I appreciate the program for including MBU in it each year. The next up is Lauren Strack. She's recognized as one of New Braunfels JC's Rising Star Award winners. So back in November 2020, the JCs, the Greater New Braunfels Chamber of Commerce, and the Herald Zeitung announced the 20 winners of the 2020 Rising Stars of New Braunfels Award. These outstanding young leaders were recognized at an annual gala for making significant contributions to the community through their professional activities and civic engagement. Lauren Strack, who many of y'all know is the assistant manager at the Headwaters at the Comal, was among those young leaders to be recognized. She moved to New Braunfels from San Antonio after accepting a position at the Headwaters in September of 2017. And for those of you who have talked to her, she's had some really incredible jobs in her career. She's done a lot of neat things before joining us. She's actively involved in the community through the New Braunfels JCs and was recently appointed to the Heritage Commission. And we're truly fortunate to have her as part of the Headwaters team. So Lauren, congratulations to you on this well-deserved recognition. All right, I apologize for missing that earlier, folks. Okay, let me get into the CEO's update. I have a few items here this month. The first is related to a main break that we had back on April 21st at the intersection of Klingeman and Lakeview. And from that main break, we estimate that roughly 1.5 million gallons of potable water was discharged to Bleeders Creek, and then through that channel to the upper portion of Landell Lake. Once that happened, we notified TCEQ as well as Texas Parks and Wildlife. We didn't notify Parks and Wildlife, but TCEQ did, and one of their biologists arrived to investigate. I also want to recognize the City of New Braunfels for their response and expert assistance, particularly Mark Endorse, who's we seem to get quite a bit of help and partnership from him. He's always appreciated. So drinking water obviously contains chlorine to protect public health, but that same chlorine is fatal to fish in high enough concentrations. And that's what happened. Enough water reached Bleeders Creek and that portion of Landell Lake that fish were killed. And Parks and Wildlife, after their investigation, reported a fish kill of approximately 2,300 fish within the Bleeders Creek Slough and the upper portion of the spring run. They also did an underwater investigation, and fortunately no dead fountain darters were found, which is an important species, and we're glad that that turned out that way. The main break was a result of failing aging infrastructure. In this case, it was a ductile iron water main, and I will tell you that this is very frustrating for several reasons. Number one, we invest in replacing aging infrastructure annually. The Board of Trustees set a goal of investing the equivalent of 1% of net plant each year on rehabilitating aging infrastructure. And that at 1% is roughly $5 million a year. But I'll tell you, for the last 5 years, we've averaged 2.7% per year, or $12.5 million per year. So the investments that we're making are nearly 3 times the goal. The second thing that is frustrating about this is that typically when you talk about impacts to rivers and streams, it's sanitary sewer overflows that are the issue, not discharges of chlorinated water. Because an equal amount of raw sewage reaching a waterway can be much more damaging than drinking water because it consumes dissolved oxygen and it can take days, weeks, or months for that area to recover. So we have a preventive maintenance program for our sewer system that we developed over 10 years ago that has greatly reduced the chance of sewer overflows. In fact, we're in the middle of the largest single sewer upgrade project in the history of Nbu, which is the North Keeler Interceptor project, because that pipe runs immediately adjacent and on the banks of the Dry Comal Creek, the Comal River, and the Guadalupe Rivers. And so what we're doing coming out of this is we're performing a risk analysis of our entire water distribution system to identify locations within that system where if a main break or some other discharge of chlorinated water happened, and there was risk to those waterways, we would be able to find those in advance. So we're doing a full analysis of our water system, and based on that, we'll be working on prioritizing projects to keep something like this from happening again. Let's talk a little bit more about aging infrastructure investments. Like I said, we're nearly 3 times the goal in our investments. So the problem isn't, are we investing enough? The problem is that our capital program is 7 times greater than it once was. And as you know, most of those projects are capacity additions that we're building to address growth. So in other words, it's not for lack of investment, it's where we're making the investments that sometimes is frustrating, because we have to divert such large amounts of money for the capacity projects and have to prioritize that way. I'd say we're 3 to 5 years from reaching a more normal steady state capital rhythm. And by then the asset management program that we have right now that we're building. By then it will have matured, and our capital investments will not be disproportionately addressing growth anymore because we will have caught up, and we'll be selecting projects based more on criticality and risk. So I'm not saying that if we were at that point now, we could have prevented this fish kill, because as you know, it's impossible to know precisely when and where a pipe will break. But that's not the goal or the point. The point is to better manage risk. So anyway, I wanted to give you an update on that, what happened and where we're going forward. The next item I have is the New Braunfels Utilities headquarters, our new headquarters access road that we've been working on. So we've continued to make, I think, very good progress on evaluating alternative access routes to our property from Loop 337. We met with the City of New Braunfels and NBISD earlier this month to discuss this whole thing from a regional perspective, because the school district is involved, because they have property, of course, adjacent to us. We learned from them in our meeting that we'd originally been understood that they were going to build a school within 2 to 3 years, and now it's 10 years plus. But the other thing I'll point out about their property, we included their traffic in our traffic impact analysis. And during the peak hour, 200 vehicles would be from NBU and 1,000 would be from the school district. So and we wanted to inform them on what we were experiencing from the public meetings and what the sentiment was. So we were able to communicate that to them. All of these alternatives that we're evaluating will require property acquisition of some degree. And so until we get a little further down the road, we want to wait until we really put the routes out there, because we want to have those discussions on acquisition first. We are in the process of negotiating with these landowners as part of our due diligence. We're also working with the city and then TxDOT on their requirements. We can make that point of connection. And then once we have all this information, we'll be able to develop a planning level cost estimate for each route that we can bring to you for your consideration. But I would describe how this is going as very good right now. We've had some very good developments in the last few weeks, and look forward to sharing more as we move along. The next update I have is on our reentry plan. We took another step towards reentry, and we will reach another milestone this week. So last Friday, following the governor's order, executive order from May 18th, NBU removed all mask requirements for our premises. So wearing masks is now optional within NBU facilities. Starting the week of June 14th and continuing through June 28th, our employees will return to the office based on newly established schedules. We've gone through a full evaluation of all positions in the company to understand which could work from home full-time, which were eligible for a hybrid schedule, and which required being in the office full-time. I think y'all have probably seen, I know I have, survey after survey I'm seeing across the country showing employees are willing to take less pay for the ability to have a flexible schedule. So we're allowing this everywhere we can, while also balancing the needs to provide that excellent customer service to both internal and external customers. Our board meetings will resume in person June 24th in the boardroom. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all in person. That'll be nice to get back in there, and I won't have to click through all these windows and forget about stuff as I'm talking. Look forward to seeing y'all. And then effective at the end of this week, we are discontinuing self-monitoring checks, so temperature and things like that, and work-related travel can resume as normal. We've incentivized vaccination for our employees, and just over half have gotten vaccinated. And just as a reminder, for us, vaccination is a personal decision. We've asked our employees not to ask each other if they've done it or not. It is a private matter. And then finally, an update on drought stage. With the rain that we've had, we are currently not in any drought restrictions. We came out of stage 1 on Saturday, and I believe that the J17 well was at 667.3 feet today. So looking good as we stand now. And that's the end of my report, sir.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to the break room being open with some food sitting around. Okay, that takes us to item 2, financial update and report.
Good afternoon, board. I'm Kimberly Huffman. I'll be providing to you the April financial update. This update reflects the 9-month mark of the fiscal year and the financial operating plan for fiscal year 21. Some of the key financial ratios that we report out on a monthly basis to you and track throughout the year. One of those is our debt to capitalization ratio. We're reporting out at 36.4%. It's well below our 50% policy for financial policy. Our debt service coverage is at 3.04, and it is above our 2.4 on our financial policy. Our days cash on hand is at 54, and it is falling below our financial policy of 140 days. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. And our days liquidity on hand is reporting out at 100. This graph does track the days cash on hand for the year, and as in April, we are at 54. It did dip down compared to the budget of 142, which is the orange dotted line. This month included a payment of roughly $33 million for power costs as to subsequent billing based on the additional resettlements and charges, et cetera, from the February winter storm. The days cash on hand ratio has been impacted by the winter storm and is currently out of compliance with our financial policy. We did add in a forecasted days cash on hand forecast of 79, which is the gray dotted line. We do project that our days cash on hand will increase up to its target in fiscal year 22. Next slide. Okay, operating revenues by line of business. The NBU service territory experienced higher rainfall and lower temperatures during the month of April than historical averages. Our fiscal year-to-date operating revenues are 147% higher than budgeted and 52% higher than in prior year. Electric is 61 million greater than budget. Water is 2.5 million greater than prior and is on target with budget. And wastewater is 2.5 million greater than prior and 600,000 less than budget. Our operating expenses by line of business are well below our budgeted amount. The fiscal year to date operating expenses are 31% less than budget and 9% greater than prior year. Electric is 300,000 less than prior year and 6.6 million less than budget. Water is 1.4 million greater than prior year and 2.9 million less than budget. And our wastewater is 1.1 million greater than prior year and $2 million less than budget. Our impact fees collected to date is reporting out at $12.7 million. It is greater than we had budgeted for, but less than prior year for the month of April. Our change in net position after contributions is 6.6 million greater than budget. We do see the change in net position after contributions start to recover from March. We did have a dip back in March from that reversing entry we made to the Power Stabilization Fund, but we still show a positive change in net position for the year. Operating revenue contributes to about $62.4 million, which is greater than our budget. Operating expenses is $67.6 million greater than budget, which includes the purchase power and the water and depreciation costs. Our non-operating revenue expenses is 1.9 million favorable compared to the budget, and capital contributions are 9.9 million greater than budget, which includes the 6.8 million of impact fees. That does add to the bottom line. We anticipate to end the fiscal year in a positive position with lower operating costs that we've seen this year, and then the higher contributions than we expected. Our capital expenditures are reporting out less than budget, which is typical this time of year. We compare that out to last year, this time of year, we're pretty much on target within a couple of percentage points. Our electric is reporting out at 65% expense to budget. Water is at 31%, wastewater is at 37%, and our support services is at 7%. And that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a question, and I'm not real sure who would be the one to direct this to, and it's more out of curiosity. We're hearing so much about supply lines and being affected by COVID.
The shortages. Are our capital projects experiencing any of those issues which would cause us for completion timelines?
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Sorry, Kimberly.
No, that's okay, go ahead. You have a better answer.
Kimberly, why don't you go ahead, and then Ryan, if you got anything to add, go ahead. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Okay, no, I was just going to add that, you know, COVID might have had some slowdown on that, but I think a lot of it is just, you know, it's very typical for some of these projects to start expensing more at the end of the year. You know, I don't know if you want to add to that, Ryan or Ian.
Yeah, sure, Kimberly. As far as major impacts to schedule, I wouldn't say there has been, though we have seen material price increases and bids that are coming in. We're making, and we have made adjustments to our future budget forecast to account for what we anticipate as increased costs for several commodities that go into our construction projects. So the contractors have reported that they have had labor issues. For the most part, they've been able to overcome those hurdles with their workforce as a result of COVID. But in general, overall, Ms. Hoffman, there hadn't been a substantial delay caused by what you described.
That's
Hey, Ryan.
good to know. Thank you.
Ryan, on the material bids, have they tightened up the bids as to how long they're good for since material costs have gone up? And if so, how much? I'm curious.
Mike or Sean are on the call. I don't have that, or I haven't been made aware of any changes, John.
Okay.
Their bids have tightened from what's typical down to fewer days, but
okay, I'll just
circle back with you and get you that information.
To answer that question, guys, typically in all our solicitation documents, we state how long the bids or the proposal should be good for. Some are governed by state law, and then others we have discretion. So we say how long they should be good for, except for a couple of places.
Okay.
And I don't believe we've had any people have issue with that. I've not heard that.
Okay. No, that was really the base of my question. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Kimberly.
I have a question for Kimberly. This is Wayne Peters. Kimberly, on the operating revenue by line of business chart, is there a particular thing that has caused a significant increase in electric, or is it a combination of things?
Yes, sir. So we did have an adjustment in our GCRF rate over the last few months that does bring in a lot of that additional revenue. I'd have to look into other major factors.
Well, I can speak to that. It's because we had that high power cost in February. So we have that matching principle where we book the revenue associated with that power cost. It's sitting as a receivable on our books right now, and we're slowly collecting that back from our customers. And that also affects our days cash on hand. So right now, we did draw down $50 million to finish paying our power invoices from February. So all of our power invoices from that February event have been paid now. But we are collecting that back from our customers, and it will take, about 18 months to get that back from our customers. And as we collect that back, our days cash on hand will start growing.
Okay, thank you. I thought that's what it was. I just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, it takes us to item 3, quarterly investment report. Mr. John on the line.
Yes, I'm here. All right, John Warren, I will be giving you the quarterly investment report update as of April 30, 2021. Next slide, please. Okay, so we'll start off with the investment portfolio summary as of April 30, which was the quarter end. On the slide, you'll see some information, but I normally point you to the last 2 columns on the right to point out what our investment policy states. So the rated average maturity in days is the second to the right column. Per our investment policy, you'll see that little box under that column that says max 450. 450 days is the maximum for the weighted average maturity for the portfolio. And we're currently in that green highlighted cell at 141 days. The far right column, you'll see the weighted average days to call. per the investment policy, the maximum is 300 days for the portfolio, and you'll see in the green highlighted cell, we're currently at 29 days. In the bottom table, at the bottom, the liquidity requirement. So once again, per our investment policy, we're required to have a minimum of 30 days of coverage of operating expenses. And in that highlighted cell, you'll see we're at 99 days. So we're in compliance with our investment policy in all three areas. Next slide, please. All right, this slide shows our rolling 4-quarter annualized yield by investment type. So the yield by investment type for our investment portfolio as of the 4/30/2021 quarter end. Also in that right column is the rolling 4-quarter average for the last 4 quarters. So the same story is being told each time I come before you. Rates are not going up, they're lower, they remain low, and the current quarter rates across the board are lower than the 4-quarter average. Next slide, please. This is showing the investment allocations by type versus the allowable allocation range. So in our investment policy, we have an allowable range for each investment type, and that's what this is showing. Each of the types of securities, U.S. agency, Treasury, so on and so forth. You see a bar graph, and you see the colored portion is the allowable range. So for U.S. agencies, the allowable range is 70%. And then you'll see the vertical line showing what the percentages currently is of the portfolio as of this quarter end. And what the slide is showing you is that we are within the allowable range for each investment type. Next slide, please. So this slide is the U.S. Treasury yield curve as of the most current rates pulled this morning. So there's 3 lines on this graph here. It's the green is showing 4 quarters ago, which would be April 30 of 2020. The light blue is showing last quarter, which was January 31 of 2021. The pink line is showing the quarter end, this quarter end, April 30th. And then the darker blue is the current yield curve of when it was pulled this morning, May 25th. As you can see, rates have not really moved much, especially on the short end over this last year. They remain low. And then there's some more movement as you go out further on the yield curve, out on the long end. You can see the 3-year, especially the 10-year and the 30-year, those rates have ticked up some as we've gotten to the more recent, as we've gone throughout this year. Next slide, please. Commercial paper. So each time we do the quarterly investment report, we like to give you an update on commercial paper quarterly as well. So this slide is showing you the summary of the outstanding commercial paper by CUSA. But currently what we have outstanding, and the total, we have in total $74.75 million in commercial paper outstanding, which when you add on, we have a separate component, that's the Series A. We have a separate component, that's Series B. That's $250,000, and what that's saying is that the entire program, the $75 million we currently have outstanding, we've utilized that entire program. The next maturity date is June 9th at 14 basis points, 14 percentage points is what the interest rate was. And then there's also a separate maturity date, a separate security on maturing on July 15th at 17 basis points. We'll be coming before you all today with a later agenda item seeking approval to issue refunding bonds, which will refund the commercial paper and open up that capacity again to once again give us the available $75 million in capacity for commercial paper notes. Next slide. And that's my last slide. Unless you have any questions. All right. Well, I'm sorry.
No, I just was asking me about any questions for John.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, it takes us to consent items for action. Number 1, approved minutes of the Nbu regular board meeting of April 29, 2021. Number 2, approved 2020 fourth quarter charge-off accounts. Number 3, approved the change order log from March 15, 2021 through April 15, 2021. Number 4, approve the reports for water and electric engineering contracts from August 1, 2020 through April 15, 2021. Number 5, authorize CEO or his designee to negotiate and execute a construction contract with Harper Brothers Construction, LLC for the construction of the 24-inch McQueeney Road waterline project. Number 6, authorize CEO or his designee to negotiate and execute a construction contract with JM Pipeline, LLC for the construction of the Nautilus Track offsite sewer project. Number 7, authorize CEO or his designee to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with Freeze and Nichols, Inc. for the design of the Lambda Pump Station Phase 2 project. Number 8, authorize CEO or his designee to negotiate and execute a contract with Siemens Industry, Inc. and contract with Siemens Energy, Inc. for the installation and purchase of 11 substation breakers. Number 9, authorize CEO or his designee to negotiate and execute a contract with Lambda Construction 1 Limited for foundation additions to the EC Morningwig, TXI, and Horton Town substations. 10, authorize CEO or his designee to negotiate and execute an amendment to the services and goods agreement with Precision Calibrate for large water meter testing and repair services. Number 11, adopt resolution number 2021-146 by the Board of Trustees of New Braunfels Utilities. 1, approving amendments to Chapter 130, Article 2, Section 130 through -30 of the Code of Ordinance of the City of New Braunfels, providing the right to board members to waive annual compensation and to revoke such waiver and reinstate annual compensation at any time. And 2, authorizing presentation of same to the City Council of New Braunfels for its consideration and passage. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
John. And a second, Bob Gray.
Okay, Laura, if you'll please take roll.
Mr. Harrell,
Yes, ma'am, approve.
Dr. Hoffman,
Approve.
Mayor Brunkman,
Approve.
Mr. Gray,
Approve.
Mr. Peters.
Approve.
Unanimous consent.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Okay, thank you all. That takes us to action items. Number 1, discuss, consider adoption of resolution number 2021-147 relating to the issuance of the City of New Braunfels, Texas Utility System Revenue Refunding Bond Series 2021 and resolving other matters incident and related thereto.
Hi, this is Dawn Shriver. We're going to give you, Dwayne and I will be giving you a presentation on items number 1 and 2 combined. So
Mr.
Laura, if you can.
Sorry, Mr. Harrell, would you like to read these number 2?
Okay, thank you, Laura.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read. We'll cover, as you mentioned, both items. Number 2, discuss, consider approval and authorization to select the underwriting team for the City of New Braunfels Texas Utility System Revenue Refunding Bond Series 2021. Once these are done, what is the pleasure of the board to take both of these as a motion or take them separately? Laura, do you have any guidance on that? Or Connie?
We can take them separately we can present together and then take them separately to vote on each one individually.
Great. Okay. All right, Dawn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Dwayne and I are going to be giving you this presentation, and just to lead off, as John mentioned, we are coming to you our commercial paper program. We've utilized all the funds, we've drawn them all down, and so we are coming to you to refill that commercial paper program by issuing long-term debt. So next slide, Laura.
Okay, my turn. Good afternoon, Mr. Harrell, Mr. Taylor, and members of the board. Going to refresh some things we have talked about many times over the last several months. First of all, regarding the market, the equity markets after the initial negative impact from the COVID-19 pandemic has been on an upward trend since mid-year last year, and that has been continuing to go up as far as equities are concerned. In the municipal market, since about June of 2020, we have been in a relatively stable range on the municipal rates, with those rates fluctuating maybe 35 to 45 basis points across the yield curve during this time period. Obviously, here in recent weeks, we've heard more discussion about inflation and the shortages and supply chain matters that are causing impacts on prices. So we are hearing about inflation, and we are seeing the possibility of those rates trying to creep up. They seem to creep up a little and then get knocked back down again. But to this point, we have not seen a significant move in the tax-exempt interest rates, but we believe with all the other factors between the market, between your capital improvement program, this is a good time to go ahead and fix out the current capital commercial paper into long-term fixed rates.
Okay, and you've seen this slide before. This is the current plan we're working under right now. And this was the debt we were planning to issue over that 5-year plan for a total of $341 million. Right now, we have utilized in excess of $60 million of commercial paper to fund projects this year. We are coming to you for the $750 million to refill that commercial paper program. And we also will be coming with a new plan in a couple days. So you'll see that we originally anticipated issuing $151 million in debt this year, but the projects we haven't had to utilize the funds as fast as we thought. So that's why we're just refilling right now. Next slide, please. And just as a refresher, some of the benefits of commercial paper. It typically offers a lower interest rate. You have the short-term rate versus the long-term rate. It provides flexibility for funding those projects so we can match the funding with the construction cycle, and that's proved very valuable to us this year. Any unused capacity is noted by the rating agencies in our days liquidity calculation. And we can also use this as an ongoing tool to fund projects. Next slide, please.
So today we're coming to you again, as we have in past, recommending a parameter order to be sent on to City Council. This parameter order would allow us to proceed with the issuance of utility system revenue refunding bonds not to exceed the par amount of $74,750,000. We have a maximum interest rate parameter set at 6%. We obviously fully anticipate to be well below that, with a maximum maturity of July 1 of 2051, 30 years out. With the parameter order, we would, with your approval today, we'll go to City Council on June 14th, and then we anticipate closing the refunding issue on July 14th and paying off the commercial paper that's outstanding on July 15th, and then that will have full capacity available to NBU at that point in time. As far as going forward with the refunding issue, we have met and wanted to recommend to the board that we use the following underwriting team. We would recommend JP Morgan as the senior manager, Piper Sandler and Frost Bank as co-managers. These three firms were in the issuance last year. Last year also included a refunding of some other outstanding debt. But this year we're going with these three. We're recommending JP Morgan as the lead. They've certainly been in tune with NBU, stayed in contact, and obviously you're aware of their work with us as we went forward with the taxable note program to help us through the winter storm event. So we want to work with them as senior manager and have Frost Bank and Piper Sandler as co's, that they have been good supporters of NBU and its bond issues in the past.
All right, and then for our next steps, we have rating agency meetings scheduled for June 3rd. And then on June 14th, we'll be going to City Council to seek approval. And as Dwayne mentioned, the funds will be available in mid-July. Are there any questions on the bond issuance? That was all we had for you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Okay, then we will entertain a motion at this time to take item number 1. I'll entertain a motion.
Hey, John, Bob Gray, I make a motion. We approve as requested.
I'll second. Wayne Peters.
We've got a first and a second. Laura, if you please take roll.
Mr. Harrell,
Yes, ma'am. Approve.
Dr. Hoffman,
Approve.
Mayor Brockman,
Approve.
Mr. Gray,
Approve.
Mr. Peters.
Approve.
Unanimous consent.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Okay, I'll entertain a motion then to accept and approve item number 2.
John, I would like to make a motion to for the item on the underwriting team as presented.
I'll second that one. Bob Gray.
Okay, I've got a first and a second. Laura, if you please take roll.
Mr. Harrell,
Yes, ma'am. Approve.
Dr. Hoffman,
Approve.
Mayor Brockman,
Approve.
Mr. Gray,
Approve.
Mr. Peters.
Approve.
Unanimous consent.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Okay, that takes us to action item number 3. Discuss, consider approval for the Headwaters at the Comal Board of Directors to appoint Jordan Matney as a Class C board member at the Headwaters at the Comal.
Hi, this is Nancy Pappas presenting this item. And just to remind you all, the Headwaters nonprofit was formed in 2017, and in early 2018, the NBU board approved bylaws that accounted for 2 NBU senior staff members, 2 NBU board of trustee members, and 3 community members to sit on the Headwaters nonprofit board. At this time, or prior to this time, we've had Ian Taylor, Don Schriever, Dr. Judith Hoffman, and most recently, Mr. Peters serving, as well as Leonard Dougal, an environmental lawyer and partner with Jackson Walker, and Richard McDonald, the Director of Environmental Affairs on our board. But we have been missing our 3rd community person and looking for a long time for just the right fit for the board. And most recently, had a lot of discussions, and it was suggested that we approach Jordan Matney, who's Assistant City Manager with the City of New Braunfels. And we're really pleased that the Headwaters Board approved her nomination at our last Headwaters Board meeting, and we bring that forward for your consideration today. Jordan's been really great already about jumping in and getting involved in the project, came out for a tour, and we are hope that you will approve that nomination and we can move forward with her joining the board. Are there any questions? Wayne, did you want to add something?
No, I'm just going to move to approve when.
Okay.
And if they're
We were
done.
hoping Jordan could join us today, but I think she had another meeting that appears to have run late.
She's on the. Hey, I thought I saw her.
Oh,
Yes,
are you
I-
there, Kristen? Okay,
Yes, I
great.
am.
And I know she's excited to join, and maybe she wants to make a comment after since I made my motion.
Thank you. I'm just very excited for the recommendation, and I hope that you all approve. I'm excited to continue to be involved and get more involved. And we already have lunch scheduled for Friday, so it'll be really awkward if it's not approved.
We'd have lunch anyway, Jordan. But.
Okay, good.
All right, I don't want to stand in the way of a lunch. I'll second Wayne's motion. This is Bob Gray.
Okay, I've got a first. Laura, if you'll please take roll.
Mr. Harrell,
Yes, ma'am. I approve.
Dr. Hoffman,
A very excited approval.
Mayor Brockman,
Approve.
Mr. Gray,
Approve.
Mr. Peters.
Approve.
Unanimously approved.
Okay, thank you, Laura. All right, congratulations, Jordan. Look forward to.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, that takes us to item 4. And what we'll do, we've got a pretty lengthy meeting today, so if anybody wants to take a break, just please raise your hand. What we may do is take number 4 And maybe before we start presentation items, take a break, maybe a 5 or 10 minute break, whatever y'all wish to do. But let's move into item 4, discuss, consider approval of proposed revisions to the NBU board governance policies.
Good afternoon, board. I am really excited to bring this action item to the board. As Judy spoke earlier, there's been a lot of work done. Last month, we came to the board with an item for future action. And just to remind y'all, just a little bit of background, back in 2010, the governance policies were approved to set a framework of how the board would operate. They were updated in 2016, and then in September of last year, the board approved a subcommittee to propose recommended changes to the governance policies. That committee was composed of Judy Hoffman and John Harrell in their roles as vice president and president. And I want to thank them for all the hours they spent reading the documents, providing feedback, and we really appreciate that. I think we're happy right now with the direction we're going in. Christine Reinhardt, our outside counsel, and I sat in on those subcommittees to assist as needed. And we brought the governance policies to the board at the retreat, and then again last month. Today, Christine is going to speak on behalf of the committee with the few changes we've had since our last board meeting in April. And that's where we are. If there aren't any questions, I'm going to go ahead and ask Christine to start her presentation. So hearing none, Christine, if you can go ahead and start. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Connie. I appreciate it. Thank you to be back here before the board again. As Trustee Hoffman read into the record, we've had lots of meetings related to these governance policies. And I believe she recapped very nicely the various changes that we've had, both since and before the March 31st retreat, as well as associated with the April 29th board meeting before. We asked for additional feedback and received 2 comments, both related, or one related to the board committees, which is in the governance policies, policy BG number 10. And the question that was asked by Trustee Peters was whether or not it incorporated all standing committees. Upon review by the subcommittee, we determined that there were 2 additional committees that were not included in the original policy revisions, and those have been added, and those are the Public Information Act Committee and the Water Infrastructure Maintenance Committee. And you'll see those in your board packet they're in blue, and they're on page 25 of the governance policies. The second comment was one provided by Trustee Gray and was taken under consideration by the subcommittee related to the emergency executive CEO succession. And the subcommittee recommended adding just one word to be clear where these changes are, or where there's going to be appointments amongst the staff by the CEO should that type of succession need to take place. And we clarified by adding the word executive, which appears in blue on page 35 of your governance policies. And those were the only 2 additional revisions we made. And Laura, if you could go, not to the next slide, but the slide after that. One more. There we go. This slide, of course, summarizes those 2 additional revisions that we are recommending to the governance policies. But with that, we are otherwise presenting the governance policies as revised for the board to consider and approve.
I have one question. This is Wayne Peters. One additional question, which I had sent in. On the committees, in the document on page 3 or 4 of that document, the committee that's recommending this was called the governance. In the policy, it's shown as the governance committee. Other places, like introducing this, it was called the governance and personnel committee. Which is it? Let's be sure we have it correct in the manual.
So I can answer that, Mr. Peters. The governance committee that was initially formed was for a few different things. When we created this ad hoc committee of the governance and personnel subcommittee, That's how we met. But going forward, we're going to meet as the governance committee because that makes more sense. And so we'll meet as a governance committee moving forward on an as-needed basis. Is there, John and Judy, is there anything I want to add to that?
Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
And
Well,
as Christine
go ahead.
points out at the bottom, I'm sorry, Christine, that these will be effective August 1st if the board does approve today.
Okay, any questions for Christine or Connie or Ms. Hoffman?
I don't have a question. I just want to offer my appreciation. This took a lot of time and a lot of work, and it was really important work. So thank you for everything that went into this, all of you.
Well, I want to thank Christine and Connie because I know they've got a workload. You know, so and Judy, I appreciate the time that y'all put into this. And it, you know, anything worth its salt takes time, and it's this is certainly a very important policy and important playbook. So it deserved every bit of time we put into it. Okay, that said, I will entertain a motion to accept item number 4.
So move. This is Rusty.
I'll second. Judy can second.
Okay, I've got a first and a second to approve as presented. Laura, if you please call roll.
Mr. Harrell,
Yes, ma'am, approve.
Dr. Hoffman,
Approve.
Mayor Brockman,
Approve.
Mr. Gray,
Approve.
Mr. Peters.
Approve.
Unanimously approved.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Okay, I've got 247. How about we come back at, what do you think, Ms. Hoffman?
How about 2:30?
2:30. Okay, we'll see y'all back here at 2:30 and we'll jump into the presentations. Everybody come back. No defectors. Are we going to have lunch next month, Laura?
Yes, sir. We've already been talking about it.
Be a big deal.
We'll have a giant cake shaped like toilet paper or something.
Do what?
A giant cake shaped like toilet paper or something.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe a pig roast out back.
Yeah.
Barbecue and beer. Yeah.
Nothing too heavy. You'll have a bunch of people asleep in the boardroom about 2:30.
We'll make sure to make it a short meeting.
Yeah, I'm getting by on Fuji apples and Topo Chico these days, so yeah, give me too much, I'll go to sleep. Okay, we're back 2:30 plus maybe now. We'll jump into presentations. I'm assuming everybody's on the call now. That'll take us to number 1 of the presentations, presentation update on the 100% Nbu HQ schematic design from Marmon Mock. We got Marmon Mock on the line.
Hello. Yes, good afternoon. We appreciate everyone at NBU and the Board of Trustees for inviting us to join your meeting today. We're going to be providing a design. We're going to be providing a design overview of our current design status. And I'll be presenting on behalf of the Marmon Mock and A&E team. This is Cody McBriarty. I'm the project manager for the new Braunfels headquarters new campus project. Next slide, please. Today we're going to be providing a design update for the current status of where the project is at. To do that, we're going to go over the goals and objectives of the current phase. We've just recently wrapped up the schematic design phase and will now be moving into design development. The objectives for this phase are to develop and confirm the site plan adaptations, to review the appropriate building assemblies and systems, develop and confirm the floor plans and building plans, and review and address the NBU stakeholder input that we've received. Next slide, please. The process that we've gone about in order to do that, to achieve the completion of schematic design, are to initially develop the schematic layouts, review possible building systems related to structural and mechanical, electrical, plumbing, develop the site grading and utility options, conduct department work sessions, receive that NBU feedback from stakeholders and department heads, and then refine that approved schematic design in order to move forward. So these are some images of that process. You can move forward, thank you. We'll note that in general, we'll do a general overview of the site. We have arranged it and laid it out to consider the best access for both employees and visitors to the campus, as well as the daily activities of the operations departments and their crews, taking into consideration vehicular circulation and the best placement for the critical operations elements and materials around the yard. You can also see there are features on the site that we've discussed previously, which are some geological features that we will be monitoring and treating as necessary, as well as considering the overall site drainage. Next slide, please. One of the elements, of course, that we're looking at is relative to the landscaping. You can see a general landscape layout that is considering native, which will be primarily undisturbed vegetation areas, as well as areas of natural planting. And then there will be some components of more structured landscape materials focused in areas that will accent, such as the building entries and areas such as that. But overall, all of the site plantings are going to be considered as far as drought resistance and responsible planting species. Next slide, please. The overall building plan that you can see has been developed in order to arrange the departments in a way that is the best location, as a best fit for their operational needs, as well as their possible adjacencies or location in the proximity of other departments. You can see up to the top, toward the top of the page, is the primary visitor entrance, as well as one option for employee entrance. And then over to the right or to the east of the page is another employee entrance, which would be focused on the operation groups. And again, the departments have been located based on their functional needs. Next slide, please. This is the overall second floor plan, and the goal moving forward on both, for the entire office building will be to continue to further refine these layouts and move forward through a more developed design process. Next slide. One of the other critical buildings on the site is going to be the maintenance building. As you can see, it's laid out with service bay areas as well as office areas and employee break areas, as well as wash bays. Next slide, please. The equipment building is also arranged for the electrical and water operations needs, as well as preventative maintenance and substations, and allowing them to store their critical pieces of equipment that need to be kept out of the elements for either regarding their type of equipment or their sensitivity to the elements. We are presenting an overall aerial campus view where you can see this is a view looking somewhat from the north, and you can see the main office building as well as visitor and employee parking in the foreground. Beyond are the dock elements where the crews will be staging for their daily activities, and further in the background are the equipment building and the maintenance building, and toward the upper left would be the storage areas for many of the larger materials that the crews will be using on a daily basis. Next slide, please. This is a current rendering view of the main entry to the building, as well as indicating where a lot of the customer service functions will be, as well as the drive-through loop, and overall the campus feel from this angle of the building, from the front entry. This view is a view from the courtyard side of the building. This will be more of an employee area, and is being currently further developed in conjunction with the design team, civil engineers, landscape architects, as well as our team with input from the Nbu core team. But this is a view of the more employee-facing side of the building, which we're referring to as the courtyard. Next slide, please. Again, a view from the courtyard looking toward more toward the south of the campus. I will note that materials that we are currently contemplating relate to more native materials and those that are seen in the New Braunfels and surrounding area, stone, as well as some metal accents and wood where it makes sense, and even wood toned metal. But those are the driving elements right now that you're seeing in this exterior image. Next slide, please. This is a view of the maintenance building, and again with its overhead canopy projections, allowing for minor repair work as well as the wash bays. Next slide. An image here of the equipment building, again for storage of either vehicles or trailers or other equipment that is best suited to be stored away from the elements. This is a view that would be approaching from West Point Drive, and as you can see, the campus layout with in the foreground, much of the area remaining as undisturbed. And this would kind of give an idea of approaching the campus from that direction. So to recap, again, we have recently completed the schematic design phase and are currently moving into and are operating in the design development phase of the project, where we are going to further refine that approved schematic design, as well as further develop building systems such as mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural systems, and technology, and also develop further site items such as routing of utilities, the grading and drainage, and landscaping. And you can see our projected dates are currently our schedule is still consistent with these dates. So the stage following this, the next phase of the design would be the construction documents phase based on the dates indicated. So this concludes our presentation. And again, thank you for allowing us to join you this afternoon, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
I don't have any question. Well, I guess I do have one question. It all looks very nice. The one question I did have, and maybe this isn't the place, but have we given any thought to I guess, creating a walking trail around that campus, much like Resolute has, for employees just to get out and walk? Or maybe that's something just to put somebody make a note of and see if that makes sense. Just a thought.
Yes, we have considered a walking trail. We do currently have in the design a trail that follows a path around the cave, the larger cave feature, and that would be associated with employees as well as visitors under its current design. And we've also considered a trail that would possibly originate from the courtyard area that we had discussed, and we're reviewing that with our with Civil and Landscape that would provide a larger or maybe longer walking trail that's more accessible to employees as well.
Okay, great, perfect.
Hey, John, I appreciate you asking that question. That's something that's important to a number of our employees. So I appreciate the fact that you're interested in that. We are too.
Good.
I have a question, please, right quick. I don't know whether you can go back to one of the site plans where the aerial plan where you can see the front of the main building.
That would either be slide 11, or
right there. Yes, right there. What's showing with all that asphalt, is that required for the number of people who will be housed at this building?
In this view, you're seeing a combination of parking areas. The kind of more curved parking in the center would be for visitor parking. To the left is intended to be for employee parking, designated employee parking, and to the kind of center left would be additional employee parking intended for operations. If the space in the back is all circulation space intended for the large operational vehicles, operations crew vehicles.
Right. I guess my main thought was that everything that's showing on our side of the main building. My question is that are you already planning in that is the amount of parking spaces that are going to be required once this building is inhabited? Or is that just nice to have, and could it be turned into more green space and these walking trails that John mentioned just a second ago?
Yeah, Rush, I can speak to that just a little bit. We talked, that was one of my questions too during the design, earlier on in the design. And the reason I was asking was because we have parking issues right now at the main plaza office and also the service center. And so what I've seen in the way of the number of parking spaces that they've included in the design are enough, but no more than what we need. And it takes into consideration, the maximum number of folks that are going to come to our facility are typically during some type of training event or meeting with folks from a regional meeting, that type of thing. And currently we do that at the service center in our large training room, but really that room is not big enough. So what we're going to do at this facility, at the new HQ, that in the front corner, that lower roof of the front of the building, that's the boardroom. It's also a combination training room. So it's going to be both, and so it's going to be larger, and we're going to be able to host training classes there, which saves us quite a bit of money from keeping our folks from traveling. There's just lots and lots of training that we need to keep up with for licenses and that type of thing. So in my opinion, we got enough parking spaces for what we think we're going to need there, but no more. Because I'm with you, it's over the recharge zone. We've got a well field out there, and we certainly want to be good stewards and limit the impervious cover.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Bob Gray. I have a comment. It's more experience. I was involved in our new Braunfels Rec Center. I know Marmon Mock was not. And we spent a lot of time and effort getting it right and adding a basketball and swimming and more swimming. But what we neglected were ample bathrooms. It's a very basic feature, but the bathrooms over there are not, are just one site. So let's be sure to look at that. I thought we were looking at it 5 years ago, but we neglected to add enough and add for growth.
Yeah. In addition to that, Bob, and I can speak to DOS Rec, not involvement, but as a regular, I guess, member that runs over there, the lockers. I guess the folks that are on these crews. I'm assuming they'll have. I guess we looked at the renderings and so forth during the survey process of this project, as far as ample space for lockers and locker rooms and that sort of thing. I would just echo what Bob said.
Yeah, thank you for that. Marvin Mock, could y'all go to the floor plan that shows? Let's go first floor, because that's where when folks come in to from the outside for board meetings and such, that's what they'll be experiencing. Let's take a look at that floor plan and just look at bathrooms on that first floor, access from the common areas. Can you point those out? Yeah, there we go.
So in this, on the first floor, there are public restrooms that will be associated off of the public corridor. And so those are there and directly across from the board and training room, which would provide for public as well as employee. There's also another set slightly to the right from that set over.
Very good.
There you go. Yes. So those are primarily for the employees in this area of the building. And then related to locker areas, those would be at the lower south, yes, area for lockers for men and women related to the operations crews functions.
Also have, if you could point out the bathrooms that are between the boardroom and executive session conference room, just to give the board a feel for what they'll experience. So you can see the dais there, just to the right of his cursor. And you'll walk behind the dais through that door, and there'll be a kitchen area and bathrooms, and that'll lead into the executive session conference room, which is that top left block there.
On that previous slide we looked at up in the upper left-hand corner, was that the training area? Did I see poles and so forth in the upper right-hand corner? Or I'm sorry, upper left-hand corner.
Yes, sir. From that aerial image in the background, those were poles that represent the training yard.
Great. Okay, any more questions for Cody? Looks good, pretty exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that'll take us to item number 2, presentation and quarterly update on the Headwaters ethical mal.
Yes, thank you. I am back to report on the Headwaters. Next slide, please. And just I just wanted to take a moment to remind you of the mission and vision and just point out again, I think lots of times it's easy to take for granted the significance of the Comal Springs, but that is such an important piece to our mission statement and the work that we do here, and you know how important those springs are to both the community itself, the native species that live in it, and of course that pristine water source that is so important to New Braunfels Utilities water infrastructure, and just a reminder of the number of people that are moving here to our community that don't really understand about those springs. And so the work that we're doing here through our mission and vision is important in educating and demonstrating to the community about that. And those are the areas that we work to provide that benefit to the community. Thanks, Laura. Next slide. Go ahead. You can go on from the head springs. This is just kind of a reminder. So our strategic objectives for this fiscal year were to continue the work on the master plan, the restoration and maintenance, working towards offering those funding focused programs, and of course creating a nonprofit that will become more self-sustaining and less reliant on New Braunfels Utilities support. Next slide. We'll go into each of these individually. So the master plan itself, again, just as a reminder, our goal for this segment of our fundraising efforts is around providing this piece of the master plan, which includes converting the main building into event space, restroom facilities, education pod, and more conference space, visitor center, and then also improving the entrance from the street, and that's Klingeman Street. Next slide. The budget for that is we've up to $8 million, which includes the construction amount of a little bit more than $5.5 million, design, contingency, fundraising costs, the furnitures, fixtures, and equipment that will go into that building when it's done, and then also a little additional amount for programming costs, which include incorporating some of the archaeology components to the project. And where we are right now to date is that we've raised, thanks mainly to Nbu, 58% of that goal, and that's where we are with foundation, businesses, and individuals. Next slide. So the restoration and maintenance, I just wanted to report back to you on a few items in this area. The archaeology report that is due to us from the significant excavation work that was out here was delayed because of COVID, and but it is expected to be in our inbox June 1st, so right around the corner. That will be the first draft of the report, and we expect it to be 1,000 pages or more, so it will take a little bit of time to process that, but we look forward to getting that information and then being able to develop some programs and community outreach around that archaeology. It continues to be a piece of the project that everyone is extremely interested in. The winter storm update, I wanted to report on this because it demonstrates one of the things that happened during the winter storm is that the SCADA system went out for a period of time from the energy rolling outages. And so the well system, or the wells kept pumping and the tank kept filling, and that chlorinated water before this project started would have gone through the overflow pipe, hit a concrete pad, and wound up right at the beginning of the spring run. We could have had another fish kill because of that event, but instead we've put in that diverter pipe. And so that overflow water went out the diverter pipe into a catchment basket and released through the property, allowing the chlorine and other elements in the water to disperse before it wound up back in Bleeders Creek and in the spring run. And so there was no impact to the springs after that event. And so I just think it demonstrates how NBU is working to protect our springs, and that had that diverter pipe not been in place during that winter storm, the outcome would have been much different and impacted the springs. So that was a great outcome from the project itself. We continue to have great volunteer work out here, and in fact had a really nice event last Friday or 2 Fridays ago. I don't know, time just is getting away from me these days. But HEB came out, one of our great partners and funding partners on the project. Richard is one of our volunteer members. They had a barbecue out here, and we had a big volunteer day. We had, I think, 30 people out here volunteering, got a lot of work done, and so that was a great effort, not to mention the volunteers that come weekly to provide support here at the project. The fire station has continued to be a great partner with us and even participated in our Earth Day celebration, and other than that, we hardly even know they're here. Great neighbors. The water plant expansion seems to be wrapped up, and so we have put that behind us. Ian mentioned Mark Enders earlier in the board meeting, and Mark's just been a great partner for us at the Headwaters, and the stormwater basin out here has been completed and has helped, although we continue to see that when we get really heavy rainfalls, there's just so much water that washes across this property, and so there was some slight damage from the April storms, but I want to thank Mike Short and Friesen Nichols, who continue to provide support to me and just kind of looking at that damage and looking for solutions that are, not too costly, but can help prevent some of the sloughing off of riverbanks and things when we get those really intense rainstorms. So I really thank them for being there and providing that technical support for me. So that's it. On our future and funding focused programs, we just continue to offer a really great variety of programs out here. Go ahead to the next slide, please. And we'll first start with Earth Day. We had our Earth Day event on Saturday, April 24th from 10 to 2. In order to make sure that everyone felt comfortable, we asked people to pre-register online. And so we had 50 people registered each half-hour slot. We sold out of those registrations. It was free, but they all filled. We had over 450 attendees, 12 exhibitor booths, lots of great kids activities. It was really an excellent event, and we're really happy to be able to offer that to the community. for free, had some great sponsors that helped that event. And then again, Mark Enders has helped us with this watershed education program. Oops, go back one more. Yeah, we are just piloting that program now, and next month or in August, I think you all will see a extension of the MOU that we have with the city on the funding for that program. Because of COVID, we weren't able to implement the amount of hours of training and programs that we had hoped to. So they're extending that program for another year, and we are just piloting that program this summer. We'll have 2 half-day, week-long classes, and already are having people register, and just are very excited about that program. So the nonprofit sustainability piece, again, the Headwaters board has worked on a 3-year strategic plan to develop that board leadership and our internal processes and policies so that we can become more self-reliant. Next slide. And to that, we had our annual meeting and board retreat in March. We have worked to redefine a little bit our fundraising goals. And I will say on that too, that fundraising is still pretty difficult in this, just out of COVID. We're hearing a lot from foundations and even businesses still that just the uncertainty of what is to come. I think there's concern about inflation, and other nonprofits not as fortunate as the Headwaters to have a supporting agency like Nbu behind it took a really big hit during COVID. And so a lot of the foundations are still having to support those nonprofits. We will continue to work on it, and I think that there's a lot of good momentum coming into this summer and fall, but I just do want to let you know that I do still have, concerns that we may not meet, especially this goal by the end of the summer, but I certainly hope to catch up and be done by the end of the calendar year. And within that as well, we are hoping to make a request to the 4B or EDC board for funding for the Headwaters project. It is a really good fit based on the requirements of the EDC board. And so it's another area where we're really excited to have Jordan on board, because she can really counsel and help us with our application for that. And with that as well, and being hopeful that we will meet those funding requirements, we'll also be bringing the Lake Flato amendment to their AIA contract to you later this summer, so that we can start the work of reviewing and updating the plans. The whole construction documents for this project were created in 2015, and so obviously 6 years later, there are elements of the construction documents that will need to be brought up to 2021 standards, especially HVAC systems and electrical and all of that. So Lake Flato hopes to start working on that later this fall. And new board member, we can go forward with that. I also did want to report to you that we have had our annual review completed and accepted. That's from Baker Tilly, and I do have a hard copy of that report for each of you that I will make sure you receive. And one of the items that kind of came forward from doing that review was that our capital campaign funds that we have received to date, which are over $500,000, closer to $600,000, are being held with the New Braunfels Community Foundation based on the original agreement that NBU had with them, and so they don't show up on the Headwaters reports. So we are working with the Community Foundation to find another way to hold our capital campaign funds. We will probably dissolve the agreement with them. They'll finish out the foundation builders pledges for us, but any new funds we'll look to move into a different account, but we're still analyzing the risk associated with that and how we handle that. So I should be able to report more to you on that the next time I present. And, and just a big shout out to Melissa and Connie. We have spent a lot of time on formalizing the agreement between the Headwaters and New Braunfels Utilities on the site use of this project as we continue to develop it and in the future. And it has taken a lot of their time. We've gone back and forth, and to Mr. Harrell's point, easier, you know, any good document takes time to develop. And I think that, you know, this one in particular is difficult, but we're making sure to take the time to get it right. And from that, we will have additional policies that need to come forward to the NBU board. They'll be approved by the Headwaters board and then brought forward for you for ratification or acceptance. And we'll be focusing on fundraising policies and financial policies on that. And I think that is all that I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Nancy, this way, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I think I have the right year. Is it the end of this year that the fire department, the new fire station is completed and they'll be in the process of moving out, or is that the end of next year?
No, it should be the end of this year.
Yeah. Have we given any thought to the future of those two buildings? I don't know if the one that they brought in is a permanent structure or just a temporary structure, but have we thought any about what happens to those?
Well, the one that they brought in, they will take with them. And the one that is there that is right next to Lakeview is part of the future future master plan for the Headwaters. It becomes the kind of storage space and like composting facility, propagation area more. And there are some additional offices that are slated to go in there. But that's like the third phase of the project.
Yeah, it just seems that I think they spent some money in refurbishing that building. I thought that the one they brought in would go out, but maybe there's some interim use that we can get out of the other one if in fact they made improvements to it until we get into the building of the other buildings.
Mm-hmm. Really all they did, that's where they house their fire truck and the EMS truck right now. So they did add those garage doors on the end of it, automatic, which is nice. But other than that, it's unconditioned and just open space.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for Nancy?
I do have just an alert, Nancy. I don't know whether you noticed going out of the facility and turning left going up Lakeview, down by the back gate behind the building. Wayne was just talking about the last time when I came home from council meeting, water was covering the road there completely. And I don't know if that has something to do with the new sidewalks being put in. I'm sure that it may, but it appeared to me that water was actually being held up from going into the ponds on the facility property there. And when they're doing that construction, there may be some of those rock bags off the side of the road that I could not see. But that might be something that we want to look at and consider, because we certainly don't want to get negative feedback from the community that we're stopping up and keeping water from clearing the roads once that construction is done down there.
Yes, thank you. I'll touch base with the city person who's working on the sidewalks. It was my understanding that area, that had been an area of concern in the past, and it was my understanding that they were working to address that when they installed those sidewalks. So I will reach out though and ask and see what the status of that is. Thanks for mentioning it.
Yeah, it could be a damming effect with the new sidewalks, and they were going to. I don't know if they're going to raise some of that street when they go in there, and I believe they're doing a mill and overlay of everything along Lakeview, and so that may change. But I just wanted to, if you hadn't seen it, and it wasn't raining when I came through there. It was rain that had accumulated during the evening, I guess, and it was still there at 9:15 last night.
Okay, thank you. I did not know that.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to item number 3, presentation and update of the strategic plan third quarter fiscal year 2021.
Hi, good afternoon, board. This is Melissa Krause. Today I will be kicking off the third quarter strategic plan update. And with that, Laura, if you'd advance the slide. So today we'll be looking at a recap of our Tier 1 strategic goals and measurements, and a preview of our FY21 balance scorecard, and then we will review each item of the third quarter performance measures via updates. Next slide. So to recap, we have 6 key focus areas, each aligned with a Tier 1 goal and measurement. And just to keep them top of mind, our key focus areas are customers and community, people and culture, infrastructure and technology, financial excellence, safety and security, and stewardship. Next slide, please. So this is just a reminder of our FY21 balance scorecard, and in total we have 11 performance measures. Moving on to the next slide. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the respective executive to highlight their area of responsibility to offer you a very brief update on each measurement.
Good afternoon. I have the first measurement. It's customers and community. And you're about to hear a presentation from Great Blue. We did conduct our customer service satisfaction survey, and not to steal their thunder, but the NBU's average score for the organizational characteristics was 85.4%, and that exceeded the national benchmark of 67.3%. So that performance measure was attained. I'll turn it over to David now.
Forward one slide, please. Thank you, Don. Our next goal is to conduct the employee engagement survey, identify and implement action items. Part of this is also we are working on the engagement roadmap for our company-wide. We are on track to finish this goal by the end of the fiscal year and have our engagement roadmap written, and hopefully present that to you in August if everything goes according to plan. As you all know, through the presentation that we did about 2 months ago, we did finish the engagement survey results, and we did better this year than we did last year. So we've been moving well in this area. Thank you.
All right, this one's mine. So this goal is to complete 80% of baseline water and wastewater projects and stay within plus or minus 15% of the projected budget for each project to be completed in FY21. I'm happy to report we're on target to hit this goal. On a program level, our baseline budget is $80.3 million. Our projected spend for FY21 is 94% of that at $75.6 million. Next slide. All right, so all 4 of the performance measures that I'm championing this year are to support the Tier 1 goal, maintain organizational reliability and resiliency. This goal is specific to asset management and the completion or implementation of phase 1 of our roadmap. And happy to say that we've completed phase 1. Phase 1 was drafting an asset management policy. And the asset management policy is a enterprise-wide strategic guidance document that acts really as a cornerstone for the asset management program. It articulates the guiding principles, intentions, goals, and outcomes of the program. And it can be thought of as the mission statement for the asset management system. Like I said, we completed the draft of that asset management policy and currently circulating it for additional feedback and input before we finalize it. Next slide. All right, this goal is similar to asset management. We have a roadmap also for project management. Phase 1 of the roadmap for project management is to design our center of excellence to be implemented in the future, and also select a project management information system. We have selected a PMIS It is going to be smart sheets, and the design of the Center of Excellence is on track to be completed by the end of the fiscal year. Next slide. Finally, our last goal, or the last goal that I'll report on today, is our reliability goal to maintain a 3-year rolling average SAIDI in the top quartile of Texas, or less than 52.56 minutes. And I'm happy to report, the slide's incorrect. It should say April 30th, 2021. I apologize there. Our SAIDI was 25 minutes on the dot. So with that, I'll pass it off to Robin to cover technology.
All right, thank you, Ryan. As y'all know, we have had a significant investment in our technology infrastructure, and I am very happy to report that this Tier 3 tactic of maintaining our system uptime reliability at 85% or better on our production systems has been attained. Our average uptime for the quarter was 99.59%, and our 12-month average is at 99.8%. And I'll hand it over to Dawn.
All right, this measurement is to maintain our cost per customer. And I'm happy to report that our cost per customer through April is $275.99. And while it has climbed somewhat over the last few months, we're on track to meet this measure through the end of the year. And now I'll turn it back to Robin.
Let me ask a question on that. Is that one reported through April, is that just for the quarter, or is that the fiscal year to date, or what?
That's yes, I'm sorry, that's fiscal year to date.
Okay, thank you.
All right, our next goal relates to safety and security, and this is managing our at-fault safety violations for greater than 250 vehicle or equipment damage, less than 3.31%. And as of May 21st, which is rather recent, our vehicle and equipment incident rate is at 1.54%. And we are below that ratio. This should also include that equipment damage, but we are below that percentage. The next thing is our safety and security tactic of completing a minimum of 1 high-risk location each fiscal year. We completed this in the last quarter, and so we remain complete on this objective.
Our last goal for this year is to bring the One Water Roadmap to you, the board, for presentation. We are on track to do that next month. This is a culmination of a lot of work through a team of individuals over the last year and a half, and so we look forward to doing that presentation for you next month. So we are well on track for this goal also. Thank you.
All right, thank you, team. And with that, we will take any questions you have.
Any questions for the group? Looks good. Thank y'all. That takes us to item 4, presentation on the New Braunfels Utilities Customer Satisfaction Survey results for fiscal year 2021 from Great Blue Research.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. This is Carlos Salas, the Customer Service Manager. The next item, as you mentioned, is the Customer Satisfaction Survey result for this fiscal year. We had the opportunity to work with Great Blue Research, and pretty much the primary goals for this survey was to assess how effective we are in our ability to serve our customers. Also, identify areas of opportunity as well as areas to increase engagement. Taylor Foss is with us today. He's the project manager. He's going to talk to us a little bit about the methodology, the key findings, and all the important information. So thank you, Taylor, for joining us. Time is yours.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you everyone for having me on this afternoon. It's always a pleasure to hop on. Unfortunately, we didn't have the ability to do it in person this year, but these kind of webinars have become old hat at this point. So I promise to be quick and concise and get you all out of here. I know it's been sort of a long one on the docket, but some great information to share with you all, and we can hold any questions at the end. As I say with any of these webinars, if I don't have the notes in front of me or if I don't have the information offhand, I'll simply take a note down and I can relay the information. Once I go back and check our database and things like that, I can relay the information to Carlos. Just want to give a quick shout out actually to Carlos and Lindsay, who have been great throughout the whole process in terms of survey design, just orchestrating the things on Nbu's end, customer records, that kind of thing. So real seamless process throughout. Okay, in a quick table of contents, what we'll go through here is an About Great Blue, some project overview, key study findings, and then some considerations. Aggregate data is actually provided separately. So Great Blue, obviously it's been a few years. I'll skip over this one pretty quickly. Just want to note we have in-depth interviews, telephone surveys, that kind of thing. And this is, I think, the 5th consecutive year tracking studies, or 5th tracking study, I should say, with you all. In terms of the project overview, we're commissioned by you all to conduct this customer satisfaction survey through a digital and telephone methodology. What I will note on today is that we're reporting on phone data only in order to track against previous data, but we will sort of transition into that dual methodology tracking now that we have the data moving forward. The outcome of the research will hopefully enable you all to more clearly understand and set customer expectations, act on near-term opportunities for improvement, and ultimately create a strategic roadmap to increase customer satisfaction moving forward. Another quick sidebar on the project overview, as I mentioned, we did use a dual methodology, although we did have that online data, 410 respondents actually, so a good response rate there. We're just tracking off of phone data only, so important to remember that when we're looking at the results. We do have the aggregate cross-tabulation of phone versus online data, which can be found separately, but moving forward, we will merge that data in order to track off of the full comprehensive results. Also important to note here, national trends during the COVID-19 pandemic, using our APPA public power data source, where we gather about 3,000 completes per quarter among public utilities. We saw the national average for organizational characteristics decline from 70% to 65.6, which is a statistically significant decline nationwide at about 4.4 percentage points. That'll be important to note just as we start to look at some of the declines, some of the organizational characteristics, and how they compare to the national average, as well as the margin for error.
Hey Taylor, this is Ian. Can you just very quickly share with the board the difference in results from the phone versus online survey? I was really taken back by it.
You know what? I don't have the cross tabulation of phone versus online. I was under the impression we'd be running through the phone results specifically. What I can say for that is there was some dips when you start to look at online organizational characteristics in comparison to phone, but nothing to be concerned about. This is a trend that we see 99% of the time, especially among utilities. You tend to see people a little more vocal, outspoken, people who fall on either side of the bell curve, if you will tend to take surveys online. So that sort of discrepancy is something that it's not something to be too alarmed about. It's kind of something we see utility-wide.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. From a high level, as I recall, the numbers were, I mean, they were somewhere 10 to 15 points lower across the board typically for the online scores versus the phone scores. And I thought that was really interesting. I know in the past, Great Blue has explained that they have focused in the past on these phone surveys for that reason, because when you're doing it online, I mean, I'm not the researcher here, but it appears that it's folks who jump on and do it because they got a bone to pick, you know? And so anyway, this is the first year we've done it, and we'll incorporate that in future years, but it's very interesting to see the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. It's nothing to be concerned of, something we see across the board. And that's the reason we wanted to stick with phone this year, is just to keep kind of an apples to apples comparison, so to speak. And just a quick table of contents in terms of areas of investigation. Obviously, we have those organizational characteristics, satisfaction with both customer service and field service representatives, awareness and perception of Customer Connect, awareness and perception of the website and the website improvements, satisfaction with current and preferred bill pay, rating your all response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and then obviously we have some demographics of the respondents. A quick methodology snapshot. Again, this is just phone completes where we achieved 502 completes on a 49 question survey. No incentive was given. This was a customer survey. You all provided that customer list there among residential customers. We use a dual level kind of system in order to capture any straight liners, we call them, people who are kind of rushing through the survey or aren't giving great results, any duplicate responses, things like that. So we do a data quality check at the end just to make sure everything checks out. That 502 completes gives you a margin of error of 4.3% at a 95% confidence level. And just to speak on that real quick, it essentially means when you're looking at these results, think plus or minus 4%. Anything outside of plus or minus 4 percentage points is something maybe to keep an eye on, something that could be a red flag, could be a green flag, but outside of that margin. And finally, the research dates were held between March 30th and April 6th of 2021. If you look at the final asterisk here, you'll see that, I'm sorry, not the final asterisk, the first asterisk here, you'll see that fielding was conducted online in 2021. And also what we did want to note is that fielding was conducted during the COVID-19 pandemic and also briefly after the winter storm. So we wanted to make that a note with the boil water notice and things like that. Moving on to the respondent snapshot, we see we have a good distribution of age, actually a great distribution. When we get on the phone, sometimes we'll see it skew significantly to the older population, but you can see here we had almost 15%, 25 to 34. Got some good statistics there in terms of distribution for gender as well, years as customer, and owning or renting the residence. In this next section, we'll just touch on key study findings, go through the graphs and the data on a case-by-case basis, but how we first like to kind of introduce this is some key findings, some key learnings. One of them being that although ratings for being open and honest about company operations and policies remained above 80%, we did see this metric decline in the survey, most likely in line with the fact that we're talking COVID-19 pandemic 1 month after the winter storm. Definitely a snapshot in time where we saw some declining ratings nationwide, particularly in your state. So definitely something to keep in mind. Although this is true, the decline suggests a notable trend, which we think you all should not necessarily address full bore, but keep in mind, just keep in mind moving forward. The actionable strategy being that you all highlight areas where you're making efforts to educate customers about operations, future plans. Communication materials could be held through digital articles, newsletters, even virtual events, webinars, and things like that are becoming, as you know, more and more popular during these days. And these could all help improve ratings. The second one, and I can't stress this enough, it's something we see nationwide among utilities. First contact resolution yields higher satisfaction. So quite simply, if somebody contacts customer service and they get transferred around or left on hold a bunch of times, if they have to call back, they're much more likely to leave negative satisfaction marks. But if they can have a seamless transition into a successful customer contact, they're much more likely to be advocates, to spread positive word of mouth and positive overall satisfaction. So the key takeaway here being that although COVID-19 and possibly the winter storm as well likely ramped up the volume and diversity of customer contacts, you all should be mindful of maintaining the historically high first contact resolution as it's directly correlated to customer satisfaction. And the actionable strategy here being, there's potential that additional training for customer service may be necessary or helpful in order to ensure everyone is well equipped to solve issues and questions specifically related to COVID-19. I'm not sure exactly if you all have resumed collections, but we have some clients who are resuming collections, and that's causing an increase in volume, more customer contacts, and things of that nature. So just something to be mindful of. And finally, 2021 survey results showed the majority of respondents who have heard of the Customer Connect, yet a less than the majority had utilized the portal. Further, 4/5 of those who use the Customer Connect are very satisfied, and 94.2 at least somewhat satisfied. So what we have there is, I don't want to call it a great distribution, but a really promising distribution of people not necessarily aware, but those who are aware are very happy with it. So there's some opportunity to educate people, get them aware, as people who do use the portal are very, very happy with it. The strategy being to convert customers, specifically more traditional customers, by developing marketing communication materials that highlight the benefits of the portal and also educate customers on how to use it. Now, just to dive into the organizational characteristics, as you can see, and as was noted before, there was an 85.4 overall average, a minus 3.9 percentage point decline, which is actually within the margin of error. So statistically, not a valid decrease there. It's pretty consistent. 4.4% was the decline that we saw on a national average. So less than that and still above the national average there. Just again, one thing to keep in mind would be that being open and honest about company operations and policies was the one metric that declined above that margin of error. So something to keep in mind there. Next, we had the office company characteristics ratings, where we saw very high ratings, a little bit of a decline for professionalism within that margin of error, though, and still above 90%. So nothing to be alarmed of by any means here. These are great ratings. What we do see is problem solving falling under 90%. Again, this may have something to do with the diversity and the volume of call center operations during COVID, during the winter storm, and things of that nature. When we asked people why they were dissatisfied, if you look on the right, of the 502 people, I believe 23 were dissatisfied, and 8 of which indicated poor customer service, not responsive, or transferred around departments. So again, you see that first contact resolution, that seamless contact resolution being important to customers. Next, we see field service ratings remaining high, 95.7, actually a slight increase there for professionalism. Real high ratings here. Courtesy also seeing that little 0.1 increase. Arriving on time, another increase, remaining consistent, 95.6%. And problem solving, right within that margin of error, a slight decrease at 91.5%. But overall, field service ratings all above 90%. Real great scores here. And of those dissatisfied, we had questions not answered, problem not solved, and poor communication as the top answers. Next, moving on to first contact resolution. Just wanted to build a slide out for you all that kind of shows this metric and how it corresponds to overall satisfaction. If you look on the left here, those who had their first contact resolution or their contact resolved on the first attempt had an average satisfaction of 93.3%. So we see that satisfaction elevating when we have that first contact. If you look to the graph on the right, you'll see contact resolution decreased slightly this year. Again, most likely that snapshot in time, COVID-19, winter storm, things of that nature kind of impacting volume, diversity, complicated contact, and things like that. Next here we have reliability ratings with a slight increase, yet still high for the electric category, above 90% for all three, water at 91.6, wastewater at 92.1. So some great ratings here, all above 90%. Moving on to rating NBU, we have 83.6, so a slight decline, who rated you all as close, very close, or close to the ideal utility. We see this bump in neutral, so a bit of that decline is precipitated by those who switched to kind of neutral, but we also see a little bit of an increase in those who indicated not close to the ideal. No red flags here, again, nothing to be too concerned of, but just something to keep in mind if the trend were to continue moving forward in tracking studies. What we did see here is that you all were rated as consistently exceeding expectations. No real change here at 55.9%. The top two expectations shown, no surprise here. Reliable, consistent service, something we see nationwide, as well as low prices, fair pricing, and cost savings. So those are 9 times out of 10 going to be your top two. Nice to see that consistency across the board, though, from the tracking data. Moving on to NBU connections, where we see 77.9% of customers surveyed indicated they did not read connections or did not recall, where we had about slightly over 1/5 indicating that they had read NBU connections. Important to note here is that the 1/5 who did read were generally very satisfied, rated it very good or good. You got 3/5 who read it indicating very good, and about 30% good. So some high ratings among those who have read NBU connections. Next, real quickly, just to touch on communication methods. As you can see here, the website is both the most current and most preferred communication method at about 50% current and slightly over 50% as preferred. No communication method was the current among about 1/4 of respondents, but you can see here social media, 7.2, preferred at 7.4. And if you look to the right on this pie chart, you see that 16.7% of customers are currently following NBU on social media, At first blush, this may seem low, but in reality, among utilities nationwide, 16.7% is actually relatively high. To be in that 1/5, 20% is ideal, but to think of 16% of customers following you all on social media is actually relatively high in terms of industry averages. Next one, touching on the website improvements, we saw 92.7% of respondents indicating the website's now either a lot easier or a little easier to navigate. 60.7% indicating a lot easier. So again, that's 3/5 of customers who did have an interaction on the website indicating it's a lot easier now. So good to see those improvements weren't unnoticed and they're working well in terms of navigation for customers. If you look to the pie chart on the right, you'll see 63.5% of customers reported they are currently signed up to receive text message alerts from NBU.
Ed, I've got a question on that last slide.
Absolutely, yeah.
That one more back, if you could.
Yeah.
Tell me on the 16.7% that customers are following us on social media, what is the timeline? Is that an average throughout the year? Tell me again. You mentioned it before, I think, but what is that a snapshot? Is that average?
Yeah, that's great. So that's actually for the 2021 survey fielding between the couple months, or the couple weeks rather. Excuse me one sec. I just want to go back to the. So that would be specifically between March 30th and April 6th.
Okay.
That's going to be the 2021. And what I can do, I'll actually make a note and we can look at social media in the past and see how that's increased or declined over years. But I'd be willing to bet it's increased just based on national averages and trends we see, but I can get some data back to you on that.
Well, and my thought was it's probably increased from a standpoint of, you know, the February storm we had. Everybody was looking for answers.
Mm-hmm.
And if this was done after that, I would assume a lot of people, once you follow, you're not going to disconnect that relationship. You're probably just going to continue that relationship.
Right. It's a great point. So what I'll do is I'll get some data back on previous years social media use and get back to you on that.
It'd be interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hey, John, this is Bob Gray. To follow up on that one, it seems to me that, you know, like the reverse or the calls that you have an outage or here's what's going on. Would that fall in the other category, like the 15.5%? It's more to tell you you've got an outage and we're working on it. Because a lot of folks don't really know where to go, and a very small portion of them go to social media where it's usually presented. But it's, you know, how do we get the word out that we know there's a problem, we're working on it, here's where it is, and here's what the estimated time.
It's a great point. I think if ever there's some more traditional users, I'll say it's in the utility space, and I think a great way to convert some of the traditional people are, you know, through traditional means. So it's bill inserts, it's maybe QR codes on the bills, newsletters, direct mail, that kind of thing. That can help make them aware and educate them on the various resources available.
Okay, it seems a small portion of folks are probably they're the most vocal, but in that 16.7%.
Yeah, and they'll have less patience if they've got a problem.
I think, that's what the vocal minority is, what we call them on social media. So I'm sure you've had some experience with that, but it's also a great opportunity to educate customers on outage notification and things of that nature. So there's definitely that. All right, and moving on to the outage notification system, where we see 35.3% of customers reported they've used the system. Those who have used were very satisfied, 63.3% very satisfied, 23.2% somewhat satisfied. So some high satisfaction there overall among the 35.3% who did utilize it. Next, we see bill pay. No surprise here. We have 41.4% utilizing auto pay through an online third party and 19.5% using auto draft through NBU. So the large majority of respondents are utilizing that auto pay. Again, in line with traditional customers, we have mailing customers at 10%. Then we've got your website online pay and so on. If you look to the pie chart.
I've got a question about that.
Yeah,
the phone call, is that the automated phone call, or is that picking the phone up talking to a customer service rep?
That's a good question. I believe an automated phone call, unless the HCH automated clearinghouse is the actual automated phone call. But if not, I would assume that's the automation there.
Okay. I have a question also, this is Wayne. On the first one, auto pay. For instance, I pay my bill, I go to my bank website and I pay my checks online. Does that fall in this category, or does that fall in the mail category? Where does that fall?
That would be a third party. That's correct.
So it would fall in that first line. Okay, thank you.
That first category, yeah, that's correct. And if we look to the chart on the right, we see that 55.2% of customers reported they're aware of that NBU rather maintains a bill assistance program. Just important to note there, we wanted to call that out during COVID-19 and the obvious experiences customers have had. Moving on, an important finding here we really wanted to call out was the satisfaction with Customer Connect. As you can see on the top left pie chart here, 58% of customers reported they're aware of Customer Connect. 44.6 of them reporting they've used Customer Connect to pay their bill or review their account information. So 44.6, it's not crazy low, but there is some room for improvement, especially when you consider the chart on the right, where you see that 4/5 of those who do use it are very satisfied with it, and 13.9 somewhat satisfied. So some opportunity there to educate customers about Customer Connect, get them using that portal, seeing the benefits, and having a highly satisfied experience with it. Next, we looked at the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, where we saw just over 1/2 indicating very satisfied, which, in all honesty, that's a great number based on what we've seen. 11.2% indicating somewhat satisfied, and not a high frequency at all dissatisfied. If you look over to don't know, unsure, that's where the rest of the frequency really falls fundamentally at 34.3%. So we've got those who aren't sure, maybe they didn't have an experience with customer service, they didn't experience the financial hardships that needed some changes in bill pay and things like that, so they answered they were unsure, but those who did answer were overwhelmingly satisfied with the response to COVID-19. Okay, and in terms of the considerations, just touching on the key study findings up top at the beginning of the presentation. Number one being highlighting areas you all are making efforts to educate customers about operations and future plans. Essentially here, helping customers to better understand your company policies, operations, future plans, programs, services, that kind of thing moving forward. Developing communications through digital articles, newsletters, and virtual events could prove beneficial as customers would be most likely to engage with you all through these mediums. The second recommendation being to ensure customer service staff are all well equipped to solve issues and questions related specifically to COVID-19. We touched on this earlier, but maybe with collections ramping up, different things like that, it's important, especially when you talk about first contact resolution and that correlation there. And finally, developing marketing communication materials that show benefits of the Customer Connect portal and educate customers on how to utilize the service. Marketing materials for education on this subject could include kind of a how-to, if you will, for the more traditional users. We're also recommending to a lot of utility companies, including QR codes on bill inserts, where they can kind of take a picture, so to speak, of the QR code, and it'll send them right to a website with a newsletter or some kind of information, how-to, maybe the login information for the portal, that kind of thing. And that's all I got for you all. Again, thank you so much for the time today. If there's any other questions, I'll take them now.
Does anybody have any questions?
Great job, Taylor. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And if anything pops up, please feel free to reach out to myself or anyone at the office, and we can get the information over to you.
Great, very good, very interesting.
All right, take care, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, this takes us to executive session. Let me read through here, and then we'll take a break and go into executive session. The Board of Trustees may recess in executive session for any purpose permitted by the Open Meetings Act, including but not limited to: number one, power supply resources, competitive matters, section 551.086 Texas Government Code. Number two, consultation with attorney regarding pending and contemplated litigation, settlement offer, or other matters protected by attorney-client privilege, power supply resources, competitive matters, section 551.071 Texas Government Code, section 551.086 Texas Government Code. A, consider matters associated with pricing information, risk management, claims notices, contracts related to, and actions taken by ERCOT in response to the February 2021 winter storm. Number 3, consultation with attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation, settlement offer, or other matters protected by attorney-client privilege, Section 551.071 Texas Government Code. A, discuss the utility construction cost-sharing agreement for the Copper Ridge subdivision and related amendments and modifications, all among NBU, Sutherland Communities NB Land Properties Limited, and Sutherland Copper Ridge LLC. B, consider matters associated with New Braunfels Utilities versus the heirs of Nellie Mae Luckett et al., number C2021-0488C, 274th District Court, Comal County, Texas, March 26, 2021. Number 4, consultation with attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation, settlement offer, or other matters protected by attorney-client privilege, personal matters, Section 551.071 Texas Government Code, Section 551.074 Texas Government Code. A, deliberate plan and strategy for implementation of executive agreement for Chief Executive Officer. Board of Trustees, upon reconvening an open session, will discuss, consider any action if necessary regarding closed session items. Okay, I have got 3:46. Why don't we go into, because I don't know the length of our executive session. Connie, anybody have any? We're back in open session. And let's see here. We have just reconvened an open session. On Friday, May 21, 2021, the developer for the addition to Copper Ridge submitted a request to NBU Board to consider authorizing the CEO to negotiate and execute a second modification to the second amendment to the utility cost sharing agreement for the Copper Ridge subdivision among NBU, Sutherland Communities, NB Land Properties Limited, and Sutherland Copper Ridge LLC. The second modification would extend milestones number 4 existing deadline of May 31, 2021 to September 30, 2021, and milestone 5's existing deadline of July 12th to September 30, 2021. I will now entertain a motion to either approve or not approve this request.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that we do not approve the request as stated.
I'll second that, Wayne Peters.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Laura, will you please take roll?
Mr. Harrell.
Yes, I agree, and we will not approve the request.
Dr. Hoffman.
I agree to not approve.
Mayor Brockman.
I agree to not approve.
Mr. Gray.
Agree to not approve.
Mr. Peters.
Agree to not approve.
Unanimous consent.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Okay, this concludes our board meeting. Is there any more business to come before the board? If not, y'all have a great evening, and we stand adjourned. Thank y'all.
Long meeting. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate everything today. It's a good meeting.
Absolutely.